welcome back for part two. And if you didn't make part one, that's okay. Part two will absolutely make sense. And I know Elizabeth is going to do a little bit of a review before we get started. But thank you so much for being here again. And Elizabeth, for your continued expertise and sharing your wisdom with us. This is fantastic.
Thank you
And
so
can't wait to
much.
hear about what we've got in store for today.
Thank you so much. To those of you who had booked some time to talk this week, I'm so sorry about Thursday. I had a little family emergency. Everybody's been rescheduled. I'm very grateful for your kindness, and here we go. So let me share my screen with you, and we'll go back and we'll talk a little bit about what we talked about last week. So last week we talked about resilience. We talked about the 7 C's, and this week we're going to put it in action but we know that self-care, you can get a mani-pedi and it's just a mani-pedi. If you add some meaning to it, you're going to get a lot more out of it. Whatever it is that you do for self-care, you can amplify, because I'm here to tell you, my self-care is just not adequate these days. It's kind of like this. It might be a great valley to look out over, but man, that plant and that planter's just about had it. So the first thing I want to do, and I'm going to go on and use the breakout rooms, I think. Let's see how many folks we've got. This will be a little rough. I apologize. We've only got 10 people, so we can do it here. Take yourself off of mute and talk to us about how your life would be different if you had more resilience, if you were more able to bend and then stand back upright after something happens. For example, let's say that Metro hasn't been all that great with trash pickup these last couple of weeks, and I've gotten really grumpy about my trash, and I've gotten really grumpy about how the bins stay out all week. And then this week I finally thought, how can I think differently about that so that I'm not as mad about it all the time? I was beginning to stand back up. So here I'd been being all Miss Grumpy Pants about the garbage bins, and this week I thought, my driveway's a ski slope. I get at least 50 steps up a steep hill getting to my garbage bin. This might be the most cardio I get all week if I'm not careful. And so I converted it. I flipped it around, and how my life is different with more resilience is that I have more energy and I feel better. So we're going to take time in a group, since there's 15 of us or so, 12 or 15 right now, and just talk about how would your life be different with more resilience. So take yourselves off mute and let's have at it.
Hello, everybody. This is Stephanie. So,
hey, Stephanie.
I think for myself,
to try to cope with a level of emotion of fear.
Okay, Stephanie, I think I accidentally muted you because I thought you were on another thing. Please forgive me, Stephanie.
No problem.
Okay.
I thought somebody else was talking, so I
okay.
I had stopped anyway.
I'm so sorry. So, how would your life be different if you had more resilience?
I think I know for myself probably would be less stress.
Mm-hmm.
I'm from what people tell me, I'm very calm. Everybody says that nobody can see my stress, so that I'm very stressed out. So I carry it on the inside. So while for everybody else, they see a level of calm, and it helps to calm them, for me, it's eating me up inside.
Yeah.
So I think the resilience would help me to not carry my stress on myself and cause it to hurt me on the inside. And I could be more of what people see on the outside.
I understand, and that makes perfect sense. Now, I'm going to say something that might be controversial, and I think it will also make sense. As a woman of color, how compelling is it to you to keep your stress inside so that you're safer?
I wouldn't say safer.
Uh-huh.
I feel like the tradition of being the strong, person, because my mom was that strong, Black woman that I look for, my grandmother. So that trying to overly be strong and not show weakness, I think, to help carry other people is what I'm working on, not having to be that.
Good for you, because I think it's probably one of those generational things that we end up with, where how our ancestors learned to deal with stress is how we learn to deal with stress. As a person of Appalachian origin, the fact that you can tell I have a facial expression and all is pretty amazing, because we're not supposed to show facial expressions. If we show you how we feel on our face, you might use it against us. So we have very flat faces when you come from what I call hillbilly land, because it's a strong hillbilly Appalachian woman look, but it really masks what we're feeling, and it makes it easier for us to hide our feelings. Not that we're doing it consciously, but I had to learn to smile even though my heart often felt it. And for those of you who have glasses on, here's a trick. If you're wearing glasses, make the top of your cheeks touch the bottom of your glasses. Yeah, there you go. Look what happens to your face. And so I've had to learn how to do that so that I could let myself show what I really feel, because, well, this was how we look. This is my mother happy. This is my mother mad. This is my mother sad. I can't even do it. But it is what we learn. So how would your life be different with more resilience?
For me, and if you do more resilience, it helps you to push through things that are what you consider to be obstacles.
Yes.
And you break it down into little particles, and you say, okay, let me look at this. And then you realize it's not as bad as it seems. And so you can push through what you have to do, especially when you have a lot of things to do. And so that's how resilience help a lot.
Yeah, it really does. Thank you, Lanice. And I love the way your background is bird. That's just beautiful today.
Oh, thank you.
None of us individually can change the structural sexism, racism, ageism, abilityism, and all the other things that divide us. We can't do it individually. We can only work on our parts and the things that we can manage and control and influence. And if I'm overwhelmed by what it means to be my age and my gender and my race and my condition and whatever else I've got my that's going on, it's much bigger if I'm looking at the whole thing. You cannot eat an elephant the whole thing at a time. You've got to break it down into little bitty bites. If you have a history of trauma, and almost all of us do, whether it's childhood or adulthood, one of the things that happens is that you end up without sometimes the sense of scale of how big is the problem I'm trying to solve. And so resilience helps you strengthen the walls of yourself so that you are less at the effect of the things that happen to you while you're trying to stop them, change them, make things better. So that's a big boon to resilience. What else? Thank you.
I'm going to jump in here. This is Corley. Hey, everybody. When I look through some of the stuff you talked about last time, Elizabeth, the characteristics of resilience, I've had to be resilient my whole life. So change and bouncing back from things is just how I live. But when I look at that list, because of some recent difficult things I've gone through and dealing with, the relationships, support, connection, that's really hard for me because I've always been a loner. And my coping mechanisms are healthy and confidence for the most part, but that connection and support and being around others is really difficult. But I think that piece in the process of building resilience is critical and it's critical for me right now, which is why I joined this crazy exercise class at work provided by Karen.
Another one of those.
Is to be a part of people and to be a part of a group that is doing things that I enjoy doing. And so, my thing in life is to just show up, have no expectations, but just show up and start connecting, because it's hard to be resilient and strong and confident when you're, in this little guarded life of your own, dealing with the things that you deal with. And when people, we off the top of our head, it's just like, how you doing? That's, we expect people to say fine and keep moving. But, I love it when you ask someone, well, how you doing? And they stop and say, well, I'll tell you, and I just think that there's a lack of human connection in a lot of people's lives, especially more so since COVID, of course, but in general, connecting with others, I think really, at least for me, can really help me build resilience and in turn, all those other attributes that we touched on a couple weeks ago.
Absolutely. That's a great point, Corley. And connection, we are all wired for relationships. Just because the wiring gets bent or broken when we're young and we're not sure what to do with it doesn't mean we're not wired for it. But learning how to connect in different ways, learning how to, I tend to be the same way. I'm pretty much a hermit. And I could go for days without speaking. Yet I've chosen to learn how to connect, different levels of connection. That's where Matthew Kelly's 7 Levels of Intimacy come in. It's a great book. He talks about it as if you're looking for a life partner. If you lighten those 7 levels up and realize it's true in all relationships, it's that part of the self-care process is learning, okay, if I'm meeting somebody for the first time, do I lead with my history? Probably not. It might make me feel better, but it's kind of not going to necessarily deepen the relationship a whole lot. If I start with, hey, how you doing? I'm doing pretty well. There's some tough things, but I'm doing pretty well, thanks. Thanks for asking, how are you? If I toss it back and forth so that it deepens, then I decide, is this somebody I think I'm going to like spending time around? Is this person seem to be somebody who, as I go down through these levels, can keep my information safe so that I don't feel that I'm emotionally more vulnerable than I want to be? And his stuff has been life-changing for a number of people in terms of learning where do we start and what do we go down through? Cliches, lightweight information, a little bit of personal information. It goes all the way down through our deepest needs and fears, which are level 7, which is what we go through, what we can share if it's a relationship we want to preserve, really after we've done the other things. So we're not whacking each other in the face with fish all the time. But it's a very good thing, and it helps you learn more about connection. But that's good stuff, Corley. Anybody else? All right, here we go. So we're going to talk about the whole you, because I think that's really important in terms of looking at all of these aspects of life and self-care and the physical, the mental, the emotional, the psychological, the spiritual, the energetic, and the cultural and social parts. And you gotta be willing to let those things in and look at them. It's better when you can look at yourself as a whole, but you may have to start by looking at each of these areas separately. And the stressors that we all have right now are huge. There is a tremendous level of isolation that we're experiencing with the pandemic. And yet, if you think about it, if you are old enough to remember, the level of contact that we have each other now is so much higher because of all of the technology, because of our devices. What the pandemic has thrown us into is kind of the level of contact and connection that we might have had in the 50s. Now, for those of you who weren't alive then, we were a lot more individual and a lot more in our homes and didn't travel as much as we do now. But I want to point out something to you about the connections we have and about the future. If your grandchildren or great-grandchildren live off planet, this is the kind of connection they'll be having. So capitalizing on it and figuring out what to do with it becomes really powerful. But all of these stressors that we're all dealing with are powerful and are important to recognize. And when we look at self-care, now this is back to those 7 C's. You all can see this, the screen, I hope, that has all the arms on it. Thumbs up if you can. Can you see it? Okay, good. In that case, I'm going to minimize again and go back to it. When we talked 2 weeks ago about these 7 C's, this is what we were talking about. And what we do when we use this handout is we have people look at this and think about it and think about, well, where am I? For example, on contribution, this is a part of what I do to give to my world, to support people around me, and to engage in others. So right this minute, on that very top one, contribution, I would be at a 10. Control, well, when I got here and I didn't have the PowerPoint I'd worked on was missing. All I could do is insert this slide and think, well, at least we've got that. And I have the available choices. I found a slide a version of the show that would let me that would let me insert this right quick and be prepared. Confidence, belief in your abilities, your ability to be direct, your persistence and patience. Where are you on that? Your competence. What are your work skills like? What are your life skills like? How are your boundary skills? How are your meaning making skills? How do you feel about your competence? Well, I got to tell you, mine's a little shaken because of what's happened this week, but I'm good. I'm good. So I would put that at about a 7. Connection. Corley, I hear you saying for you it would be closer to the 0. Yet, when you look at these interconnections as well on the very bottom, you may have more of those than you're aware of. We store those up. We don't necessarily call on them. Character, your personal values. It's in my nature to give and to share with other people. Self-discipline, that is, how do I manage my ability to control the things that I need to control and choose about, my autonomy. My moral attachment. Now, that's a funny phrase. Moral attachment means, am I doing things that I'm comfortable with morally, or am I violating my own moral code in places? How is my character? And then finally, coping. You can be off the top of coping. You can be at a 15 on coping. But if you're at a 5 or a 1 everywhere else, it's not going to do you as much good. So this is one way visually to begin to see how we're functioning and how we're doing well. And I can see that I've got a watermark on here that I thought I'd removed, but we'll take care of that later. So this chart gives you a way to think about these 7 C's and where you are from moment to moment, day to day, over time. Sorry about that. And he'll call back. It's one of my neighbors who's just really persistent. He's been concerned. I'm so lucky. I don't know how you are all in your neighborhoods, but when I was dealing with this weekend, all of my neighbors came to visit. They rallied around. They brought food. They did not bring funereal potatoes from Walmart, which was fine with me. Did y'all know you can buy funeral potatoes in the freezer section at Walmart? I think that's just awful. If you can't make funeral potatoes for somebody, you don't need to be going to the visitation. That's just me. But we look at these C's and we see, and I can tell you that in terms of where I've been this week, this chart has been different than it would be if I did it today or next week. But we still have to look at it from time to time to see where we are. And Karen, I'll send you a copy of that without the watermark that people can get. So I want you to understand that the 7 C's that I just showed you relate to everything. My contribution to the world produces endorphins. It makes me happy, so it contributes to my physical. My contribution supports me mentally because it keeps me mentally active. It makes me feel good to help people get where they want to go. Psychologically, it means I keep researching and learning, and that's good. Spiritually, it helps me express the love I have for others. Energetic, it keeps me from getting into isolation. I could do that for every single C on here for all of these elements. So this is why it's so important to recognize that while resilience and self-care sometimes seem separate, they're very much connected. Because when you do an act of self-care and process it through the 7 C's, you end up with a whole lot more power in it than you think you might have. So now, what I'm going to do, since we've got 12 folks, I am going to put us in 2 breakout rooms, and I believe you'll be able to see these. If not, we'll do it as a solo. Do y'all want to take a risk and see if we can see this in the breakout rooms? Yeah. Breakout rooms are a lot more fun. So I'm going to create 2 breakout rooms that I'm going to assign automatically, and that'll put 5 to 6 people in each. Actually, I'll do 3 breakout rooms. Now I'll do 2. And I want you to think about these questions, and I will put them up. We'll be at about 5 to 10 minutes again. And this is to back us up in resilience so that we get to self-care in a whole different way. What you're looking for is just make a quick list, maybe 2 or 3 of each of these, points about each of these, okay? So we'll see you in a few minutes, and I'll come and check in. Are y'all doing okay?
Yeah, we were just trying to jot down the thing. So it's control of your physical body and choices.
Yep. And how's your sense of competence?
Okay.
And have you checked up on your connection? How is your sense of competence in doing what's next? And you checked up on the connections you have to boost your sense of well-being? And what coping skills do you have?
Yeah.
I wish I knew how to make this display the screen in your breakout rooms, but I don't know how to do that yet.
Okay. That's all right.
But I took notes. I'm always pretty.
All right.
Yeah, I've got them written down, and I think that, but yeah. And who would like to contribute and just say any?
Not really.
I thought I better join y'all. You did that way I can be part of the party too.
We was asking the question is related to the movement. Is it related to exercise or just general movement?
I would say everything. I mean, I confess, to me, if I'm changing my frame of reference, it's move my chair one inch to the left or 1 inch to the right these days. It's not how am I in terms of the fact that my bottom is the perfect shape of a Herman Miller Aeron chair seat pan, So it's about food choices. It's about exercise. It's about how comfortable I am with the changes that are occurring as I age, like my bulldog, my gooseneck waddle.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, it's like how can I wear that turtleneck? There you go. That's better. Now I just look like a little jowly face. So it's about all of it. I got to tell you, with this thing that happened this week, it was one of my pets died, and my sister and her husband were having a little crisis, and I was eating everything in sight. I did not feel like I was in much control of my physical choices in terms of my food and stuff this week.
And I kind of find that interesting because I'm very self-aware, which is very interesting. When I was in therapy, I need to get back in therapy. But I have actively been making the bad choices. Like in my head, I've been saying, you know what? I'm stressed at work. What I can control is enjoying what I eat.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoy chips and I enjoy French fries. And I'm going to eat all the chips and I'm going to eat all the French fries. So
I'm with you.
I've been making active choices. They haven't been the best choices. And I know in the back of my head, these aren't the best choices for myself.
Well, wait a minute. Let me ask you a question. Are you still doing the best you can?
I am.
Okay, ease up then, because, it's stress at work. That stress will shift. And it's not what you do 2 or 3 times in a week for 2 or 3 weeks. It's what you do for 6 or 8 months, 2 or 3 times a week. And as a French fry fanatic myself, I've discovered that one of the things is that I just absolutely periodically get filled up with French fries and I have to stop. Does that happen for you?
It hasn't yet.
Good for you. I'll tell you another thing that has, and now I'm trying to fix, I'm not trying to fix, but when I realized that what I was doing is I'd changed my diet to be heavily carb loaded, I began to add more protein back in, and that has helped me not be so interested in French fries.
Right.
But so that in turn made me feel more competent, which was good. And that was one of the nicest things because I was not feeling particularly competent about anything. So, yes?
No, I didn't mean to cut you off. I apologize.
That's okay. No, it's all right, honey. You can cut me off anytime. I'm sure enough I've been cut down, cut off, and cut up. What can I say?
No, I don't want to do that. No, I was just saying what's interesting is that, I look at it from different, like you said, the movement choices. As far as the exercise choices, I haven't been making good choices this week. And I know that. But as far as I consciously say, get up and take a break from the computer, consciously say, take a deep breath. So I've held consciously that way.
Good and for you.
And as far as the food goes, I still consciously make what I feel is decent choices as far as food. Now, you're talking about potatoes. I can eat potatoes every day. I love them. Fried, they just say fried, dyed, and laid to the side. But in my mind, I try to make a choice if I eat them to cook them healthier. Instead of French fry them, I'll do a baked potato or something like that.
Yeah.
So,
I'm
doing the best I can.
And that's the thing. I want y'all to ease up on yourselves because here's the thing. It's, you didn't wake up this morning and decide, oh my God, my life is going to be so stressful. I'm going to have to eat potatoes all day today just to cope. You know, I mean, seriously, did you? I didn't. You know, and if there are days when I can look and I grow a lot of sweet potatoes in my backyard, there are days when I can look and say, you, big boy, are going to be baked fries before this day is out. You know, and then we'll have white potatoes. You know, but it's about instead of, if you beat yourself up when you make choices that you wish you didn't make, then all you do is invoke guilt and shame and judgment. And if you could say, today I chose this, tomorrow I will choose something different, and kind of recognize you're doing the very best that you can. Somehow that choice for potatoes is helping you. It's all the chemical reactions of potatoes and carbs and how they make you feel better. Of course, if I eat a whole baked potato, I have to go sleep for 2 hours, so that doesn't help much unless I really need to go to bed. But it's a sense of how do we weave our competence in with our control. How do we weave our connections in with our control? I have a friend who makes the best baked sweet potato fries you've ever had in your life. And if I'm really craving fries and I want to do something that is better than going down here to Hugh Baby's, you know, or going down to McDonald's or going somewhere and getting French fries, I will go to her house and say, make me some baked sweet potato fries. I need the company. There's my connection. I need to feel like I'm in control. I'm not choosing greasy fast food French fries. I'm choosing baked sweet potato fries. And there's my character, because I'm still working on becoming a better me when I do it. That's how this stuff all plays together. Does that make sense? I'm talking too much. I'm going to get out the room and let y'all have a few more minutes by yourselves.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So where are you going to go while you're up there, Kara? You just going to visit family?
Yes, I'm just hanging out at their house with them.
That is so cool.
Right now I'm at the hotel, obviously, but yeah.
I recognized your virtual background as soon as it came up.
Yeah, and we're just going to parks and playing.
Good. So what did you all learn in your time together?
Well, I was just in the middle of a comment and I ended up hitting exit breakout room, but Corley was talking in our group about she used the phrase like, you know, giving yourself permission to blank, blankety blank. And I think that is, you know, the giving yourself permission. I think that is like what's involved in that perspective shift. And I think that giving yourself permission is an act of self-care and tuning into like, okay, so what do I need? And I might not be able to, because of a physical condition, I can't get out into nature anymore where I receive all my energy. And so, you know, we could stay in a place of regret, of, you know, just feeling like a victim, you know, but allowing yourself then to, first of all, to feel, because like it's okay to feel those feelings, because it does suck when, you know, like the thing that you've always done for your life to give yourself, you know, energy and you can't do it anymore. Yeah. So it's okay to feel those feelings, but then to just also, you know, recognize like, okay, maybe there's something else. I can go outside and sit and still be in the sun and receive the sun's energy. Like I don't have to walk 5 miles. And there, you know, there's other things that I can do. Anyway, so, yeah. But I think that is such a great act of self-care and just understanding and being compassionate with self. And I do think that that's a key to these resilience building skills.
It really is. And that's such a hard thing for all of us because we all have the judge and the critic on the inside. You should be able to do better than this. Shame on you. You should be able to get to the gym twice a week. You should be able to withstand the temptation of those lovely, greasy, fattening French fries that you love so much. It's really the salt. You know, you should be able to get out of bed at 7:30 every morning instead of rolling over like a fish and staying in bed till 9 o'clock. You know, you shouldn't all over yourself. And the thing is I think I used this last week and I'll do it again today. You know, the question is, do we really believe that we're doing the best we can? I mean, the other side of that question is, on what morning have you waked up deciding to be a loser? Consciously deciding, today I am going to make Karen Gillingham mad. Ooh, yes, I've lost that PowerPoint. I'll get on the call. I know what I can totally screw it up and hose it up. And that way, you know, I can really, are you kidding? No. I don't know, I've maybe maybe 2% of the people out there wake up and decide to be jerks or mean or ugly or pick a label, any label. But everybody really is doing the best they can, or they would do something different. Unless you believe people have really ill intent and are generally malevolent. They are doing the best they know how in the moment. The kid that's throwing a temper tantrum in the classroom obviously has had a really bad morning. And he didn't wake up deciding to throw Miss Smith under the bus and throw a fit in the classroom. His feelings got the best of him, and he did what we all do. He goes into fight or flight or isolation, one or the other. He needs Velcro. He doesn't need to be isolated. So when you stop and say, wait a minute, did I wake up this morning and decide I would be a loser and eat 2 bags of French fries, or is this just the best I'm able to do right this minute? Not that you want to keep doing it, but the more compassion you have for yourself, the easier it is to change, because then you don't have the injury of self-judgment and self-meanness. Does that make sense? Good stuff. What else did you learn?
Well, I think too, with what you're saying is that, and I'm sorry, I'm harping on, socialization and being around people.
Don't worry, we're coming to that next too. That's the whole rest of this. Yeah.
So I learned a long time ago, in terms of building self-confidence and self-esteem, is the feedback from others. First of all, putting yourself in circles or around positive people that build you up, and recognizing the people in your life that suck the blood right out of you, or the life right out of you. And, and it comes and goes in different times of your life. But I learned when I was a lot younger that my confidence was being built by others' feedback toward me about certain things in areas where I felt like I just no confidence whatsoever. And, and it's such a delicate surrounding to find those people or to have those. And some of you might be really lucky to have that built in already. And some may have to, look for it. But I think surrounding yourself with positive people to give you that feedback, because we need that. We need the feedback about what we're doing. And that over time has helped me professionally and personally just build my own self-confidence, which then turns into that one of those components of resilience is feeling, confident about yourself.
Yeah, it really does make a difference, and you're absolutely right. It is, and I go back to Matthew Kelly, because so many of us, in terms of the bumps and roads that occur in early childhood, we miss learning how to build sturdy relationships. And sturdy relationships is what we're talking about, and they take time, and they take energy, and they usually take more time than we want to give them, because it feels good to connect with somebody. And so we go down a little too far in those levels of intimacy when we really haven't earned that relational permission to do that with another person. And so an example is, I was at a faith community meeting a couple of weeks ago, and this woman walked up to me, and I didn't know her, and she said, "Now, your name?" I said, "Yes, I'm Elizabeth Power, and you are?" And she said, "My name is." And she said, "So what do you do?" Which is a very American way of greeting people. Very American. "What do you do for a living?" I said, "I help people become trauma responsive." And immediately she said, "Oh, let me tell you about my husband. He did this, he did that." And I got her entire story without even asking for it in the first 45 seconds that I knew her. Do you think I want anything to do with her again?
No.
Big boundary violations. And without the consciousness that we didn't know each other well enough to share that information. And I said to her, "Honey, I'm so sorry, but you clearly have me confused for a therapist. I'm an educator. I'll be glad to help you find somebody you can talk to about your stuff, but I'm here to help people learn things." And it took me a good 60 years to learn to redirect. That was awfully direct, and seemed like in the moment the only way that I could move on. And I've since gone back and checked on her to see how she's doing. But we don't learn these skills. When we grow up in environments where we are in therapy a lot, one of the things that happens is that therapy itself teaches us this. We go in to do an intake and we spill our beans. Then we go in for the first couple of sessions and we spill our beans. And if this is the most important relationship we have in terms of helping us heal and grow, Well, that is exactly what we should do. So when we begin other relationships that we want to be important, we sometimes do the same thing with them without recognizing this is not the right context for that particular response. So it's all a matter of growing and learning. And let me kind of plunder on here, if I could, to where we're going next, which is to talk about connections and how we develop those, and how we can use them, because they really are where we're heading. There we go. So these are the pieces, these are the questions we ask, and a couple more. Now, if you don't know anything except I feel good and I feel bad, it's going to be hard to actually work with your emotions a great deal. But I feel good and I feel bad are just where we begin. There's actually some really cool research that shows where people feel things in their bodies. It's now turning out to be fairly universal. These questions are helpful to people. I want to go on and take a look at the self-care, the connection piece, our strategies. Like I said, I'm working off a different slide deck, so bear with me. Interconnections. Y'all, I can't tell you how powerful interconnections are. Now, I can remember every bad thing that ever happened to me, and with great relish. But I have taken a long time learning to remember the positive awarenesses that I have that are just as important, that really bolster me up. They help me be able to tolerate. If I had done more of this work when I ran into that woman, even before I went to that meeting, I might have been less inclined to just, say, wait a minute, not here, not now. I might have had another more graceful way to do it. But these are the things, and we started talking about this a little bit last week. Who's wearing something, a piece of clothing that somebody gave you? What's the story behind it? Sometimes I go to, when I'm with people and I can sense that we're trying to figure out how to get to know each other, I say, oh, that is a beautiful scarf. Tell me where you got that scarf. Because that story, they're probably not going to be wearing something that causes them to feel angry or upset. They're probably wearing something that makes them feel good. Or I might look and I might say behind them, I might pick up on something in their background. Corley, I could ask you a lot of questions about what's on those shelves, and you could tell me stories about all of them. These are the pieces of memories that we need to hang on to and foster and build up, because they help us build the self so that we can tolerate the difficulties a little more easily. Favorite recipe or food? How many of you have stories about that? I can tell stories all day long about my Aunt Floyd's 3-day coconut cake. If you don't like coconut cake, it's worth it just for the story. But your favorite recipes, your comfort foods. Imagine if you had a group of people that you like who put together, it could be a virtual potluck, it could be a socially distanced potluck, where they brought their favorite foods and everybody told the story of how that food became their favorite. Automatically, you're building that connection. Your favorite feel-good song. I'm working with a group in Zambia, and every week I say to them as we get ready to close, sing me a song that makes you feel good, because they're working on becoming trauma responsive in their school. And so I carry with me the memory of these people doing call and response, this beautiful a cappella singing, and I carry that with me about them, and it makes me break out in a smile, and that's good for me and good for them. Who are the people that I cherish in my life? And Karen, you're on that list. I don't know if you know that or not, but you are. That's why I keep picking on you so much. And Tina, I seen you after all these years. I remember all the times that you and Jay Wayne and I spent together and had such good times a long time ago. That's a positive interconnection.
Mm-hmm.
The places. I was thinking this morning about Japan and how much I enjoyed being there and looking at my Japanese clock. So part of what happens is, as we build ourselves by focusing on these things and cataloging these things, this little pad of pink Post-it notes is where I'm collecting my interconnections this week. If you have recipe card boxes and index cards, you can do it. But these are all things that help you reach up and identify positive interconnections that you have that help you counteract some of the challenges of stress these days. Now, you can do this naturally when you're with people. If you feel that you're called to, you could say to people like, Tina, that is a beautiful bouquet you've got back there. Where'd you get that? And that's just me looking behind Tina and seeing her bouquet and asking her a question. Now, and the picture's on her wall. And when Karen says she's in D.C., I'm tempted to say, go by Georgetown, see where I work, see where I teach. Or go by the National Cathedral. That's a very cool place.
Mm-hmm.
So we begin to build these connections, our webs. Even if we're still learning how to build sturdier relationships, this helps us build our own web and our playlists. Now, all of y'all, if you've got paper, this is something, pick 3 and do this right now. List a beloved piece of clothing that was a gift, a piece of jewelry, a favorite recipe, a favorite food, who's got a ringtone. My sister has a ringtone for me. I don't know what it is. List a couple of these things to help you focus on the connections you do have. I'll give you 2 minutes. Well, I'll give you more if you want me to. Now, when you have this catalog, there are a couple of things that you can do with it. I happen to love large stones and large rocks. If I'm wearing one of my big turquoise bracelets that was a gift to me from the Navajo Nation, and I see somebody else wearing a large a piece of jewelry that appears to be from the Indian nations, I may say, oh, it looks like you enjoy jewelry from the Indian nation. That's a nice, light level, high level kind of thing you can say to somebody. That's a beautiful bracelet. Tell me a story about that bracelet. You can begin to evoke those stories from people just in the process of your natural conversations. Top feel-good song. So one of mine is still the Pharrell Williams Happy Song. I still love that song, and when I hear it or when I use it, I bust a grin. And when I see other people busting a grin about it, I ask them, tell me what that song means to you. These are natural, high-level, light things that you can ask people about that have a pretty low chance of evoking stuff that you may not be ready to hear, or that they may not be really as ready to share as they think they are. Sometimes we overshare just to get our feelings out, and that's a good thing to do. You just got to make sure you're with somebody who's got the space to tolerate it. Anybody surprised at anything you listed?
I'm not necessarily surprised by the answers, but just how easy they came and flowed.
And that's the thing.
Go ahead.
No, you go, Karen.
I was just going to say, and then the visual of the web, just like how you describe that, it's so effective and meaningful to me, because I just think of this, kind of being in the middle, and then just these connections that grow out from that. So even initially I look at those 7 C's, I'm like, I don't know, how do I do, and all those, and then all of a sudden, it's just like, oh my gosh. And then when you do this exercise and answer, it's, you can almost just feel, there's a lot there. There's a lot there for me that I can rely on.
It's so cool because you can then run each of these through all the C's. I mean, some of this is just an exercise, but it really does make a huge difference. Now, here's what we're going to do next. And I'll go back. We can do that in the group because there's so few of us, so we'll do this as a breakout and outside of the breakout rooms. So let's do the food thing. So let's tell a story, and I really didn't pick that because I ain't Floyd, but it works good for me. So let's tell the story of your favorite group in the food, without any bad beginnings, without any backstory. And here's how it sounds. This is my favorite story about food, my story about Aunt Floy. Because I remember how she used to look when people put the food in the wrong place. So here's the story. My Aunt Floy lived within visual distance of the house I grew up in as a child. And I'm going to go back and show you the chart I'm really going to use with this. I'll clean this video up before I send it, Karen. My Aunt Floy lived within eyesight of the house I grew up in. And she cooked in the school kitchen, in the cafeteria in the school that my great-grandfather built, all 8 rooms of it. And Aunt Floy made this cake that took 3 days. And I mean, she would make the cake, and she would soak the cake, and she would make the icing, and she would put the icing on it. And you still didn't get to touch it for 2 more days. So she did these for family reunions. And our family reunions had 150, 200 people in them when I was a kid. And there are all these sawhorses with plywood laid out on them, and everybody had a place where they put their food. Aunt Floyd's coconut cake had its own spot. And you could only hope that you got to that spot early enough to get a piece, because it was lie down and wall ain't it good. When Aunt Floyd died, some poor young woman who was new in the family, an outlaw who'd married in, decided she saw an empty spot and she was going to put her cake there. What do y'all think happened? My Aunt Clyde, who was kind of like a death tank that rumbled when she got mad, rumbled up to that young woman and picked up her cake and tossed her head aside and said, "I'm so sorry. That's Floyd's spot, even though she's been dead 10 years. Wow. So when I make that cake, I think about my Aunt Clyde, my Aunt Floyd. I think about those family reunions. I think about all the people I saw. And if there are things that happened there that I didn't really like, I'm in charge of whether or not I choose to think about those things. Now let me walk you through that. So number one, I've just told a story, and I told it, I think, fairly well. So my meaning-making skills and my competence in storytelling, they're okay. My connection, I brought up at least 4 different family members and the interconnections to the recipe. And I was aware of the fact that some people may not enjoy family reunions, but we can still, in how we talk about them, we can still talk about the positive things. We tend to go towards the negative because it's our brain trying to protect us from things that may have happened in the past and threats it perceives. I hit character because my personal values are towards people and relationships. Coping, I hit coping because I was aware of the things I might not want to talk about and what I did want to talk about. Look at what this one story's done for me. I can run around this wheel with that one act of self-care of telling that story. So you all are going to want to figure those things out for yourselves as well. So you've got a catalog. Who wants to tell a story about a food that's a favorite food of theirs?
I can go. This is Stephanie again.
Great. Thanks, Stephanie.
So my story is more about my favorite meal, which I have started cooking. It's breakfast. And so when I connect breakfast with my family for Thanksgiving, of course, you have a huge, big, extended family. So our family always was my grandparents and their children. So my aunts, uncle, cousins, stuff like that. But to connect our extended family for Thanksgiving morning, we will always go to my aunt Lucille's house, and she would cook us all breakfast. And so my aunt Lucille was my grandfather's sister. And so in that, my grandfather's siblings would come and we would all have a big breakfast for a lot of years until she started getting ill and wasn't able to do it.
Yeah.
So even today, cooking breakfast, it's a warm place to me. So that's the one thing on the weekends that I'm going to spend time doing because I love just the memories that are surrounded with this simple act of doing it for other people, because I definitely love cooking breakfast for other people when I can.
You got it. I mean, you know what I do, Stephanie, is I tell people, and it's kind of fell out with the pandemic, but I say, I don't care if you're downtown drunk and need to stop somewhere before you go home. I don't care if your heart's broken. I don't care if you're happy. I don't care what's going on. If you text me, even if it's 2:00 in the morning, and say, "Is the kitchen open?" And I say, "Yes, you come on." It might be crackers and peanut butter and baked beans, but there'll be food here. Because it does the same thing for me. So that's a perfect example of how to do that and how you can use this tool to build connections with others, because it's common, non-threatening, non-deeply personal stuff. You did a great job telling the story. I feel like I know your Aunt Lucille, and I kind of know your family, and I can hear the chairs creaking, and I can hear the laughter, and I can smell the coffee and the bacon and the eggs, and it's wonderful. It's a good thing. So that's one act. That one story is an act of self-care, and the way you told it is fabulous. You could go back and you could absolutely run that through all of these, and you would see.
And that's what I've been doing, is looking at the different
cool
the 7 C's that I wrote down, and I can see each part of it.
That's so cool. That's just the best ever. Thank you. Makes me happy. Okay, so let's go on to what's next. Forget the graph. You don't have the graph, but we'll get it. So when you engage the synergy of all this, every act of self-care, imagine my friend Nancy Brookshire is going to come over here later today, and she wants to go get a pedicure. I hate pedicures, but I want to see Nancy. I don't like people touching my feet. So we're going to go to the person that she's been using for years to do her pedicures, who's opened up again. So there's a connection piece. It's a contribution because we'll be contributing to that woman's economy. We'll also be checking to see how she's doing. There's connection. There's coping because Nancy says she really needs a pedicure, and I've got some places on my feet that need attention. I'm building my confidence by letting somebody touch my feet. See what I'm doing? I've got this one act of self-care that I'm not particularly keen on except how it contributes to my life. And you can use all of these tools to monitor the impact of the work, monitor what you're doing for self-care, look at where you are on the 7 C's, use those 7 C's as a filter, and increase your resilience muscle using that would be a 7 and not an ampersand, and then amplify the value of your self-care activities. Here's the thing. We are limited in some of the things we can do right now, but we're not limited in how we frame them through these 7 C's to amplify the benefits of our self-care as much as we can. And that's what I want to leave you with today, is letting you know that that's really the key to the work that you're doing, is to begin to actually use those 7 C's to assess your self-care and to jack it up a whole lot. We've got 2 minutes. What's next?
Thank you. Thank you so very much.
It really does make a difference.
It makes a tremendous difference, and thank you.
You're so welcome. Corley, how are you doing? I saw your face fall a while ago. Are you okay?
Oh, sure. I was looking at those pancakes pretty much.
Yeah.
I went to IHOP this morning. I couldn't get in, and I just was fixated on those pancakes. I'm sorry.
Man, I tell you, what's your favorite pancake?
Harvest grain and nut.
Oh yeah, excellent. They are really good. Have you ever put cherry jam on them?
No, I don't do sugar, but those I can get away with no syrup or butter or anything. I know,
and they work exactly. They work well as a plain pancake.
That's my comfort food. Yes.
May you have all the harvest grain pancakes you can tolerate.
Thank you,
Karen. I want to thank you for letting me do this. Y'all know how to find me. I really appreciate everybody being here, and I wish you the very best with your self-care. Jack it up, take it to the next level. We are the future. Women are definitely the rising stars of the future. Help yourselves, help each other.
Amen to that.
it was great. Thank you so much.
Hands up.
Thank you.
Hands up on the screen.
Hands up on the screen.
Yes, you guys, thanks for being here today. And we will have the recording if anybody wanted to take some time to view it again. And then when Elizabeth has slides ready, some of those would be amazing to have, just the wheel, and then some of your other takeaways.
Thanks. I'm going to chop some of the back and forth out of it.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good.
You all have a great day. Take good care of yourselves, and thank you for being here today.